I had a very engaging phone conversation with a friend recently who told me about her grandson's imaginary friend. This is how she told me the story. Her grandson said, "Grandma, I have a new friend." And Grandma wondered during this pandemic, school at home time how that had happened. So she gave an open-ended response. "Tell me more," she said. "Well, my friend is made up," he said. "Oh, see, Papa read me a story, and the kid in the book had an imaginary friend, but it was kind of dumb because the kid seemed to think the imaginary friend was real. And the imaginary friend was not that great anyway. He was always getting in trouble." "I didn't want to think about the book for a while," the grandson reported, "but then I wondered, what if I made an imaginary friend that I knew was made up? And since he was made up, he could be totally magical." "Well, why not?" said my friend's grandson. And then the little boy proceeded to tell his grandma about the amazing things he imagined his friend to be able to do and to be. The imaginary friend was sometimes an animal, sometimes a boy, occasionally a robot, a shapeshifter. Once he was a kite to ride the wind on, and another time the imaginary friend was a song that made the boy laugh and dance. It is amazing what the human imagination is capable of. The results of imagination are everywhere, in every invention, every work of art, every craft, poem, song, story, tool, every piece of music, dance, every idea. After that phone conversation, I kept thinking about this child's imaginary friend. And his imagination sparked my own, and I wondered, if I had an imaginary friend right now, what would they be like? What would I expect of them? How would they make my life better? Well, my first idea, I must admit, came from my practical mind much more than my deep imagination, because my original imaginary friend seemed more like a cross between a cleaning person, a cook, and a handyman. But I dug deeper and I invited my imagination free range. Yes, doing the dishes and fixing the dripping faucet would be nice, but how could my imaginary friend help me to access my own colorful flying imagination, my own joyful song, my own creative ideas that would make me feel more alive, more engaged and participatory in this kind of long, gray, isolated time? How is imagination relevant to a life of spirit and meaning making? Where is the divine, the thing that connects us to that which is larger than us? As Unitarian Universalists, we seek meaning in our lives, and we each have different theologies to help us understand our own journey. So I invite you to access your own understandings in order to encounter the imaginal world. In our society and our culture, we are taught to believe in what we can see, touch, feel, turn over, and look at from all angles. But we didn't start out that way. As children, we engaged our imaginations and the imaginal world. But we've been taught to put all of that aside as mumbo jumbo, as woo-woo, as nonsense, as flights of fancy. Yet one of the most influential thinkers of our times, Thomas Edison, said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Knowledge is something you can prove, but imagination is a beautiful, natural confluence of curiosity, wonder, and infinite ideas that allow knowledge to be discovered. The imaginal world is the invisible world, all of existence that we cannot see. The world of spirit. For some of us, God is a felt spiritual presence. For some of us, being in nature offers an intangible connection with all of life. For others of us, ritual and ceremony bring us in touch with that imaginal world. Humans use their abilities of imagination to make sense of the senseless, to understand each other and a changing world. Have you ever felt the presence of a loved one who has passed on from this world? So clear for a moment, so real, yet invisible, yet present. Allowing ourselves permission to activate and strengthen our unique and personal imagination is to access a valuable tool. How can we enter our imagination to bring a spark of inspiration, a moment of joy, a blanket of comfort, a voice of courage into the day-to-day? Bringing imagination into the moments of simple lethargy or painful grief, or in spinning and spiraling anxiety, or in exhausted depletion or loneliness, boredom, restlessness, regular, normal life, especially in these pandemic times. How can we use our imagination as a tool for life, sometimes for surviving, sometimes for thriving? I offer here an idea to spark your own ideas. I would like to guide your imagination. Please remember that we all have imaginations, and we can trust them to bring us what we need right now. Please take a moment and notice yourself sitting where you're sitting. Invite a full relaxing of body and mind. Take a deep breath and let it out. And when you take another breath in, release it with a softening of your body. Take another breath, and on the exhale, release shoulders, jaw, hands. Soften and close your eyes. Continue to breathe and bring your attention to your heart area. Breathe into your heart space. Breathe into your heart space with friendliness and kindness. Enjoy gratitude for this center of emotions and love. This physical place where you feel both heartbreak and deep joy. This seat of connection with other people and animals, where relationships of love are formed. Continue to breathe into your heart area and look within. There in the quiet openness of your heart space, you see an animal. You see an animal. What animal is it? Your imagination has given you a symbol, an image. Oh, no, Kate, not yet. Sorry. When I'm done, I'll just turn off my video and you'll know. I'm sorry. Let's come back to that moment of being with that animal that you found in your heart space. Your imagination has given you this symbol, this image, this friend, a being that you can work with, engage with in deep conversation, helping you to understand more about the workings of your own tender heart. What does this animal mean to you? What can it tell you about the state of your emotional center? The animal that showed up may surprise you, may delight you, may even disappoint you. This is information to you from your imagination. When I did this guided imagery a few months ago, what I saw in my heart space was a tiny saw-whet owl. They're only about this big. And it was being held in someone's arms. I wondered aloud if it was sick, if it could fly. It did fly around just fine, and it landed back in those loving arms. The little owl said, "I'm so tired." And I said, "Who is holding you? In whose arms are you being held?" And the little owl said, "God, love." I could feel the tiredness and the support of love in my heart. And I have engaged my imagination to continue interacting with her, my little owl. And I've offered to her and to me what I can to alleviate some of her emotional exhaustion. Sometimes it is simply rest without guilt. Often it is a conscious walk in the winter air, along the river, down to the lake. I have heard owls calling in the night, and I place my hands on my heart and I say, "Listen, listen." The beauty and the wild call out, and I listen. I give the little owl poetry and music and connected conversations, and she is revived. I see this exercise we've just done together as an opportunity to use your incredible and reliable imagination for healing, for information, as a tool. I hope that you will go back later and spend some quiet time engaging with your animal. Or if you did not have time enough to see your animal, that you will go back on your own and wait, knowing that your imagination can be trusted. These times we're living in call for practical tools for living. And luckily, we have tools, and we also have built-in and factory installed an incredible imagination. Perhaps an imaginary friend is exactly what we need right now. Someone to remind us of our own creative mind, our own great capacity to survive and thrive. an imaginary friend to inspire and comfort us. We need to feed our imaginations. They provide us with countless examples of alternative narratives. Alternative narratives. So that when life challenges us, as it will, we have imaginations that know how to hold us in love. Imaginations that sing in colorful, sometimes silly, maybe off-key tunes that show us a different way of looking at things. So that we will wake with hearts wanting to play the way wings should. So that in the morning, our children will indeed see us fly. So may it be.
What a day we're having. I am going to invite you now to go into an extremely practical guided meditation inspired by Jan's reference to giving us tools. I'm going to suggest to you that just as we all have an inner child, an inner parent, an inner critic, this we've heard about. What if we all have an inner IT consultant? What if we all have an inner administrator? So I'm going to invite you now to first do a little magical something that might help you be inspired to believe that you can open up to things beyond. Take one hand and put it on your belly button and the other on your third eye. And draw the one on your third eye up. Feel the energy rising from your gut up through your heart, letting all the circuitry in your mind connect to all which is beyond. Close your eyes and go within. Your inner IT administrator. That person's in there. How is that person doing? Is it a person? Probably. Tune in. I know when I did this years ago, I had a woman who I've been working with. She's morphed amazingly. But to start with, she was rather like me. I couldn't entirely rely on her. She got extremely stressed by IT stuff. Check in first with the actual state of your IT admin function. Like the boy in the story, maybe not quite what you want. Three inspired breaths to let the magic unfold. let that being evolve to what you can feel is a strength, a resource to call on, to know as your admin, so you have more time for imagination. Let it happen. Perhaps more alien, perhaps part robot. Evolve. Get detailed. Think you just had that Zoom crunch and you're going to turn to this person. This is your inner resource. Refine the qualities to start with. This friend will surprise you. This friend will come through. Spend a short amount of time more feeling in, imagining this inner resource. And now, before we take a year of it, make sure your being, your friend, has a name. And I so encourage you to also play with this technique, giving more of the work to that inner being, leaving you free to play more and delight in the realms of imagination.